Well, Bible study season is over for the summer, and so I'm starting in on my projects before the garden starts to come in. This is a roasting pan full of beef bones and vegetables that I've saved in the freezer. These bones, every time we have a roast that has a bone in it, or we have a steak that has a bone in it, I cut out the bones and save it. We do get soup bones from the guy that processes the beef for us, but as long as I save enough in the freezer, I haven't used any of that in a while. But I have these bones. These are some nice looking bones there. I'll fill this with water. I've got probably, I guess about 10 or 12 quarts of water in here. I've got garlic peelings that I've saved from when I've roasted garlic. I've got onion peelings that I've saved whenever I've cut up onions. I've added celery leaves to this. I've added carrots. There you can see some carrots floating around. I've also got a few bay leaves in here, and then salt and pepper. So I'm going to let this cook on about 225 or so for about 24 hours. Then I'll come back and add a little bit to the video of how I strain it. After we strain it, I'll let it cool overnight in the refrigerator to get the fat off the top. Actually, the beef tallow that I saved to fry deer burger in. It's delicious. Then I'll show the next video on how to continue making the beef broth. It's an extremely simple thing to do. Anyone can do this. You don't have to have a roasting pan. Just do it in a pot on the stove. That's what I did for years before I had this roasting pan. So it was almost ridiculous to do a video about this because it is so simple. But I wanted to do it because I just want to encourage you to do your own. Don't buy beef broth or chicken broth or turkey broth in the grocery store when you can make it yourself. You know exactly what's in it, and the taste is out of this world. So I'll add to this video whenever I'm ready for the next step. Alright, welcome back to day 2. The beef broth has been cooking, more than 24 hours, probably closer to 30, and you can see what a nice golden brown color it is. The smell is just out of this world. So the next step, I've turned this off, and what I will do now is I will strain it. I've got a large pot here. This roasting pan is an 18 quart. I probably have, I don't know, maybe 2.5 gallon of liquid in there. But what I'll do is I'll put it over in this colander and strain it out, and then I will put it in my gallon jars. I have several gallon jars. I'll put it in the jars and then put it in the refrigerator after it cools in order for the fat to solidify on the top and drain that off. But this is just a matter of I'll use a cup and just pour it in here to drain it out. I may, depending on if there's little bits of meat that go through, I may strain it through some cheesecloth or a cloth, an old cloth diaper, clean of course, and to get all the bits of meat out. Little bits of meat won't hurt to can this in the amount of time for broth rather than for meat. But as you can see, it's draining out pretty clearly. So that's just the next step in it. It's just going to take a little bit of time of dipping this and straining it out, and then I'll come back and add to the video probably after I've taken it out of the refrigerator and I get ready to start canning it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. The email address is in the information on my YouTube channel. If you like this video, if the videos of the farm are helpful, please subscribe and ring the bell to get notification for new videos. I also do Bible studies, so if you're not interested in the Bible studies, you can just ignore those. But we believe in farm stewardship. God has blessed us with this farm, and we want to be good stewards of the things that we have. But if that's not something you believe, then you can avoid that and skip over those videos. But I certainly hope that you will watch them, and you will watch these, and perhaps it will help you. So I'll be back on another day, probably tomorrow, but not sure. Hi, welcome back to broth canning. I finally got the broth cooked and put in the refrigerator. This is the beef broth from earlier in the video. As you can see, I put it in the refrigerator and it's gotten cold, and so I will get all of this fat or beef tallow off the top of it, and I'll save that and put that in the freezer, and I'll use that for frying. As I said earlier, I'll fry particularly ground deer burger, because it gives it a wonderful flavor. So I've got to strain this. What I'll do with that is I have my pot here that I'm going to strain it into, because there's some sediment at the bottom. You can see, I don't know if you can see in the video, the sediment that's at the bottom of that. I don't want that in my broth. So I'll strain that through this cotton cloth. I've got these handy dandy clothespins holding my cloth on there, and then I'll strain it into this, and then I'll heat it before I can it. I've gotten my canner out, my pressure canner out. So that I've got to do that, but in the meantime, I've got this other broth that I had in the freezer. What I usually do through the year is especially at Christmas, when we cook a turkey or a turkey breast, I'll save the bones of that and make broth out of it, and then just put it in a gallon bag and put it in the freezer. And then when I'm canning, I have a day set aside for canning, because it all cans at the same temperature and for the same time, or the same pressure amount and the same time. So I just wait until I have a day when I'm going to do it all, and just make one mess or make one day of it. So what I'm going to do, I've got turkey breast broth here. I've got turkey broth here. I've got some ham broth, and then I've got some plain chicken broth. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put those in separate pots and let them start heating. Well, I'm not sure what I was saying. I got a phone call right in the middle of it. So I may say some of the same things, but anyway, I'll take this broth and put it in pots and heat it, so I can go ahead and start canning it, because it'll take me a little while to get the tallow off of this and to strain this, and so I can go ahead and have the other on cooking. There's really nothing I need to show you about doing that, except that when it heats and I just fill up the jars, I may come back and add a little bit on that when I get ready to actually put those in the canner, just to give you the how-to on that. Very simple process. Canning broth is one of the simplest things you can do. It's super easy and just absolutely delicious. I use a lot of this beef broth, and also use a lot of chicken broth. The turkey broth I don't use quite as much of. I'm anxious to see how the turkey breast broth tastes. Regular turkey broth seems to be a little strong for me, but a lot of people like it, so I'm anxious to try the turkey breast broth and see how it tastes. But I'll come back and add to the video a little bit later then. Alright, I've got all the broth, or almost all of the broth, boiling. I've got the beef broth has been strained. I've not got it hot yet. I've got the canner on. If you're going to be canning, you need to use the directions for your canner, as far as how much water goes in it and so forth. Mine is an old National canner. I have my mother-in-law's, Joe's aunts, and my grandmother's National canners, and I get the gauges tested about every other year and put new gaskets in it. But anyway, I've got the canner on. I've got the water in it, and it's hot. I've got a pot here with jars in it that have been scalded. They're in hot water. I've got the turkey broth has come to a boil. The turkey breast broth has come to a boil, but I'll reheat it a little bit more. I'm running out of stove ice. And I've got some chicken broth back here that has been boiling. And by the way, I've tasted this broth, and it's delicious. All of them are delicious. So I'm getting ready. I've got different color rings to go on the jars so that I can remember which is which. I think the chicken broth is light enough in color that I won't be mistaken, but the turkey breast and the turkey broth look almost identical if you just had them in jars side by side. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'll do a couple of jars here just to show you how to do this. First thing is I'll take one of the pint jars. Now I'm putting all this in pints. I'm going to put the beef broth in quarts because I use it more in quarts. But the chicken, I use a lot of it in pints, especially to drink or something like that. So I've got a hot jar here. I've got my canner funnel here. This has been boiling. So I'm going to fill this jar up. With broth, you need to leave 1 inch of head space. Got my measure right here, so 1 inch. That's just a little bit over, so I want to take out just a little bit. Okay, one more. We'll do it. Perfect. Now, I've got a cloth. Generally, with most canning, I'll use a cloth that I've dampened to wipe the rim off. But with anything having to do with meats, I use a paper towel that is dampened with white vinegar. And what that does is it removes any fat, grease residue that's on the top. So we'll wipe the top. Jar flats, we used to have to heat those in boiling water. They tell you now that they really don't need to be heated. I kind of split the difference, and so I'll take them and I'll dip them into the hot water and then put it on. And this is the chicken broth, or the turkey broth, so I'm going to use the plain colored rings on it to keep it separate. And you just tighten it finger tight and then put it into the pressure canner. So one more. You don't dry these or anything. Just take them straight out of the hot water. From the looks of this, I may have a whole canner of just plain turkey broth. My canner will hold, well, it says, excuse me, it says it will hold 10 pints or 7 quarts. I've found that I get 9 pints in there without, having to move them around or get them really, really close together. Let's see, that's just a bit more. All right, I'll wipe the rim. So I'll do my turkey broth first, and then I'll do the turkey breast broth. And I was really amazed at how good that turkey breast broth tastes. You can get the ring there, or the flat. It tastes really, really good. Set that in the hot water. And put the ring on. Set it in the canner. Okay, I'll do the rest of these jars, the rest of this broth up in pint jars. Put the lid on. Now my canner says to let it vent for 10 minutes. Once the steam starts coming out really good, it vents for 10 minutes, and then I'll screw the little pit cap down. This is what the top looks like. I'll screw this down, and then when it gets up to 11 pounds pressure, which is the right pressure for the altitude where we are, 11 pounds pressure, and then once it comes up to 11 pounds, then I'll set my timer. Pint jars pressure for 20 minutes, quart jars pressure for 25 minutes. You can put pints and quarts in the same canner, except you just use the time for the quarts. Now, that's not recommended with vegetables or other things, but broth is a little bit more forgiving. You really can't mess up broth unless you just don't pressure it long enough. And so I'll do that, and then the pressure will, after it's finished, the timer goes off. Turn it off, let the pressure come down naturally. Once it's completely down to 0, then I'll take the lid off, let it set for another 10 minutes in the pressure, and then take the jars out. When that's all finished, I may pop back on here and just give the end result of that so you can see how it's finished. But that's basically what goes into canning broth. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email me or comment on this video. Be sure to subscribe to the video. I think I said in an earlier video that I also have Bible studies videos, a Bible study program called Hand to the Plow. But if you don't like those, just skip over those and watch the cooking videos if they can help you out. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment or email me, and I'll do whatever I can to help you. So, be back in a little while. Well, I had to take a break from canning to come up and help my husband hook up the tedder on the tractor. He's had cataract surgery and he's not supposed to lift, so guess who needs to help? Alright, back to the kitchen. I thought since I had to come up to the garden and the barn anyway, I might as well add a little video. This is our hay field. He'll be tetting here in a few minutes, and he'll be ready to bale on Monday. This being Memorial Weekend, that good, dry, hot weather gives us a good opportunity to get hay put up. This is our garden. Everything's looking pretty good, although we could use a little rain. Beans, peas, corn, tomatoes, okra, edamame, sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, all kinds of peppers. So there'll be canning coming on of that later in the summer. So anyway, headed back to the kitchen. The canner, this canner load of broth is finished. As you can see by the little snippet, I had to leave. This is actually the second term that I've done. I had to leave and help my husband hook up the tedder to the tractor. Those things always happen here on the farm, so I was at a good stopping place, and so I went and helped him. Then I came back and put the second turn on, and the pressure has gone down. The little thing in the middle has dropped, and so I'll be ready to loosen the petcock, and you can see there's no more steam coming out. Carefully turn this because it's very hot. Anytime you open a canner, you always open it away from you so that the steam doesn't come up in your face. Set that lid off to the side there. Now this will need to sit in the canner for about 10 minutes to let the pressure acclimate to the outside air. And what that does is that keeps it from siphoning out, meaning the liquid that's inside coming out from around the seal before it seals tightly. In fact, I already heard one of them pop. They'll start popping and sealing in here. One thing about broth, and I'll warn you, if you can broth, sometimes, now it didn't happen with my first turn, but sometimes it will pop and then seal and unseal, pop and re-pop again. You'll think you've got 15 jars instead of 7 or 8 of them. But don't let that alarm you. That happens sometimes. So I'm going to let that sit for 10 minutes, and then I'll take that out. Got my ham broth heated. It's ready to put in the jars as soon as this comes off. And then I'll be doing my beef broth. The beef I'm going to put in quarts, so it won't take as long to do that. They're probably, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 quarts of that. A turn is 7 quarts. I may do the second part of it in pints, just so I don't have just a couple of quarts in there, depending on how much it is. But that's basically it for canning broth. Like I said earlier, if you have any questions, please comment below or feel free to email me. And anything I can do to help, I'll be glad to do it. So I hope this has helped you. I hope this will encourage you to can broth for yourself. Probably next week, as the beginning of this video was with the beef bones, probably next week I'll do a turn of chicken bones and then do more chicken broth. All of this canning, since our Bible study semester is finished and the garden hadn't started coming in yet, so that's why I do these projects in between. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you have many wonderful canning days. May God bless you.